Okay, I believe we are live. Can you guys hear me out there? Let me know. That's usually a problem we have. Can you hear me? All right, we're good on the audio front, everybody. All right, I'm getting some yeses in the chat. Here now that the commercial's done. Sorry about that. Yes. Hello there. How is everybody doing? Everybody have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, insert holiday name here. I don't know what other winter ones there are. Does anyone celebrate Kwanzaa? I don't know. I've never met a person that celebrates Kwanzaa. My only experience to Kwanzaa was like probably a Rugrats holiday special. I don't know. Anyways, I think I'll buy a couple minutes to allow people to arrive. Guess do a mini Q&A here at the very beginning of the live stream before we get into the survey results, which should be interesting. I've done a little bit of analyzing of them ahead of time, or at least of the ones that are harder to look at because they're like open answer kind of things. Let's see. Philip Garcia asks, what is Kwanzaa? Kwanzaa is this holiday made up by some like Black Power activists or students in the 1960s to be like a celebration of like African culture, but there's no roots of it in like actual culture in Africa. It's a completely fabricated holiday that not very many people celebrate. See, Shen Parte, yep, good. You had a good Christmas. Yep, and looks like a lot of people's first and possibly only exposure to it was like a Rugrats special. Yeah, it's like Kwanzaa nowadays is mostly seems like a joke. Like, you know, there's that joke from Futurama, you know, like the Kwanzaa bot having to hand out that children's book. What the heck is Kwanzaa? Like thousands of years later. Like 1,000 years later, he still has to hand out a book telling people what the hell Kwanzaa is. All right. So, any questions before we get moving? Just rearranging some screens on my end. All right. See, that's my book recommendations on a sea glass. Let's see, Shen Parte, that's my book recommendation on a sea glass. It's probably the best book of the sinking of the Titanic. Neat. Nope, no questions? All right, then, let's start with the survey results. And so, on my screen... Nope, that's the right one there. Boop. So I have all three. This is the third time I've done the survey. Technically, it's the fourth time, but this is the third time I've done it using Google Forms. The first time I did it, I used SurveyMonkey, which is not very good. They only allow you 10 questions on the free version, and it's like the paid version is like way too much. So, you know, yeah. So, I try to keep as many of the questions same from year to year just so I can compare responses. But over the years, there are some questions I remove and new questions I add. And so we're going to compare as many of those results as we can. So for the first one, This is the 2022 survey. And the first couple questions I asked were not on the previous surveys. So the first one is, are you currently, well, before that, we can compare the responses. This year, the responses were 285 people responded. Now, that's definitely more, that's like nearly twice as many as from 2020, which had 145 responses. Then again, the channel was probably about half the size that it is now back then, so that's understandable. However, in 2021, there were more responses then than there are this year, 313 compared to the 285. Now, my suspicion for this is that in the latter half of 2022, a bunch of stuff was done with the algorithm that got my channel kind of really suppressed. I'm not even sure what the right word is, but they changed the algorithm in the latter half of 2022, which really hit my channel hard, and it's only started to come back from that in in November did it start finally to turn around, and it's not fully turned around yet, but it's finally moving back in the right direction. And so I think since my videos in the latter half of the year did not get as many views, they weren't going whatever videos I was promoting the survey in weren't going to get as many views and therefore not be seen as much. And so that is expected, or at least it's I can rationalize it. Now, whether or not that's the actual reason, that is, whether or not it's the actual reason, I can't say, but yeah, so that's the responses. But now to the actual questions. Hold on a second. I think I got a phone call. My apologies. All right, back to the program here. Okay, so social media related questions, I use these questions to try and decide, okay, how should I do content strategy and marketing strategy and whatnot? And that's what part of these are for. The first question, a couple questions here are ones I did not ask before, though. First being, are you subscribed to Casual Historian? Just wondering, okay, what percentage of the people who watch my content enough to actually want to fill out a survey are actually subscribed? And it's most of you. The fact that there's 284 out of the 285 people responded to this survey answered this question, and 97.5% of you guys, or 277 of you, said yes you do, which means 7 of the people who answered this said no. It's you're willing to fill out a survey but not subscribe to the channel, which seems odd. It seems odd, but who knows what you guys are up to. And then the second question here, have you clicked the bell icon to turn on notifications? And this one's about a little over a third of you who have done that, which is unsurprising. It's unsurprising that a disproportionate number of you compared to, say, the total audience would have said yes, because at the end of the day, hey, as much as we want surveys to function as like demographic data, they're ultimately reflective of the people who care enough to fill it out. And the people who care enough about the survey to fill it out are those who are probably, you could call them super fans or something like that. So that is that deal. And so obviously you have to keep in mind the realities there. And so, over a third of the people who responded have turned on the bell icon, which means the rest of you should do that. All right, the next question, 283 responses. Which of the following social media platforms do you use? And about 99% of respondents use YouTube. I'm curious about the 2 people who responded to this question that don't use YouTube and somehow filled this out. Now, granted, I share these I shared these surveys on Twitter, so I guess there's that possibility, but I can't imagine, like, it's just hard to imagine the people didn't. You know, it's like I have trouble fathoming it. And then the next, Twitter, about a third of you guys use Twitter, which is, you know, yeah, Twitter holds a much bigger space in like online discourse than it actually possesses. You know, it's like it occupies a lot more attention than its actual user base like deserves. Followed by, see, next is Facebook at about 27. So a little over a quarter of you still use Facebook. I have it, you know, that's where a lot of my older family members are there, but I don't use it too much for anything else. Twitch, 8.1% of people use that. So I don't know if that would be if that's reflective of like, if I could force every person who watches my video to answer this survey, I don't know if that number would be higher or lower if they all had to take it. Discord, you know, over a quarter of you guys use that. More people use Discord than Facebook, at least among respondents. You know, and I've got I'm a member of a number of Discords myself, and I have a Discord for members of the Patreon. So, you know, that's a thing there. You have Tumblr. You know, it's like, I hear Tumblr's actually kind of reviving itself recently. It's like, I think they got rid of their ban on like adult content. And so there's been a lot of people moving back to Tumblr, and then a lot of other people who, you know, like, who wanted to act like they were protesting Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter went back to Tumblr. And so I think that, and I hoped that would make the Twitter platform better. It has not yet, but that's because I think we've all gotten so used to Twitter that, you know, it's similar. Basically, people claiming that they're going to be leaving Twitter for good are a lot like the people who claim, like, I'm going to Canada if person of the other party wins the election. They never do, you know. So yeah. And so then we go to Instagram, which is the second largest of all these platforms. You know, over a third of you guys use use Instagram. So I might consider doing more stuff there, but there's just not as much money in Instagram unless you're already really big. And then there's TikTok, which is slightly more than Twitch. And I don't use TikTok. I have 4 shorts on my YouTube channel. I uploaded, I think, all 4 of them to TikTok, and they did not take off there. So, yeah. See, I got a couple more people in the chat. CF, welcome. Loved your Jewish origins video. Do you have any comments on the current genetic genealogy and haplogroup research for Jewish origins? No comment on it at the moment. I have a video about it. It's part of the Jewish history series. I think the title is something about lines of like Jews are not Khazars or something like that, or the genetic origins of Jewish history. I was like, I have a playlist for it on the channel. You can find it, and that's, at least those are my thoughts based on the research that was available at the time in 2018. Otherwise, I have not kept up with the research. And yeah, that's sort of about other platforms you guys use. And then, of course, there's the question of, do you follow me or the Casual Historian brand name on any of the following platforms? And of course, about just under 12% of you follow me on Twitter as either @GrantGHurst or @CasualHistorian. You know, one's a personal Twitter account, and the other is one just for the channel, where I only promote channel stuff. Then about 2.5% of you guys, or 7 respondents, follow on Facebook, which is, I don't update that one very much because it's just not really worth the effort. Instagram, about 3.6%, follow either my personal account or the Casual Historian account. And then the overwhelming majority, 238, 84, basically 85%, don't follow me on any, which is understandable. So yeah, so basically, based on this, it either means I need to use Instagram more or just not worry about Twitter. And, well, given, like, if you ever look at the back end of a YouTube channel, and in terms of, like, the analytics, you'll find that most channels, most videos don't get very many views from people coming off platform onto YouTube. Most of your views happen from people who specifically go to YouTube and then find it or have the content suggested to someone. So yeah, that's not a big thing. Then when on YouTube, where do you usually look for new videos to watch? Now this is a question I ask because like there used to be this phenomenon, and I think it still happens from time to time, where people think like, oh, I didn't see your video in my subscription feed. And the vast majority of the time when that happens, it's because the person doesn't actually know what their subscription feed is. They go to the website and they assume the first page is their subscription feed, which is not. It's the home page. And so I ask this question mostly to see if there are lots of people mistaking it. But of course, this is a skewed sample because these are people who like the channel enough to know how to take a survey. So they're probably going to be a bit more power users on the platform. And so of you guys, when you're looking for new videos to watch, a majority of you guys go to the subscription feed, about almost 55%. After that, it is the home screen, the home page, about 32.5%. Will go there, and about 12% of you will look at the suggested feed, which is the videos on the right-hand side of a video if you're on like desktop or like on a tablet, or it'll be below the video if you're on something else. And then a very small number of you, less than 1%, use the trending or explore tab, which I find myself also using that less and less. And YouTube seems to be emphasizing the trending tab less and less nowadays. Now, what's your favorite YouTube channel excluding Casual Historian? Now, unfortunately, some of you guys, when filling out this part, decide to name numerous channels, which makes analyzing the data a little hard, or it makes it a little time-consuming and difficult. But luckily, I managed to go through that number. I managed to go through it all. And I have found a way to analyze that information. And so I created a little chart here telling me, going through all of your responses and tabulating them up. It's like, okay, how many people are these favorite channels of? And so there were 240 responses. And of all the responses I got, Cynical Historian, Cypher, he won with 11 people saying he was their favorite creator or their favorite YouTube channel, excluding Casual Historian. Which is not surprising. We have a bit of overlap in our audience's interests. Followed by Kings and Generals, which is also not surprising. Big channel, does map stuff. Not surprising, it's just one of the big channels. Then it was followed by Tick, which I don't know how some of these other channels would feel about that. So Tick, followed by a three-way tie between Kraut, Sam Aronow, and What If Altist History, with 8 people each suggesting them. And I'm surprised that Alternate History Hub got below What If Altist. I'm kind of surprised, mostly as a matter of pure numbers. And then there is another three-way tie between Atun Shea Films, JJ McCullough, and Mr. Beat, each with 5 people suggesting them. Then we have another tie between Forgotten Weapons, Historia Civilis, Knowing Better, and Vosh, surprisingly enough. Then we got more ties for Armchair Historian, History Matters, Oversimplified, The Great War, and Useful Charts. And then we got Alternative Hypothesis Re-Uploads, which surprised me is 2 different people suggesting this very small channel, followed by Call Me Ezekiel. And then Caspian Report, I know them. CGP Grey, I'm actually kind of surprised they weren't a little higher on the list. ContraPoints. Yeah, I've got some lefties in the audience. That's a question further down in the survey will show. Drawkinafel, haven't looked that up. Fall of Civilizations, and yeah, there's a lot of people there. And then, of course, you get to the ones, and there are a lot of channels with just one person saying that's theirs, and that's makes up a plurality of the favorite channels. And so this information I will end up using to see, it's like, okay, what kind of content are my audience watching? What can I learn from them to attract perhaps more of that creator's audience to my own channel, as well as perhaps there are some collaboration opportunities in the future with them. So, let me check the chat for a minute. Let's see. Kaiwan Calendar, can you give me a history of nationalism? It's complex. There are other videos doing that. I haven't watched them all, so I can't, speak up to how good they are. But I find nationalism's harder to know, to give a really good history of, mostly because nationalism, the nature of nationalism varies from country to country, and so having a big, wide movement of it is hard. Kind of like JJ McCullough's video about like Canadian nationalism, how it's basically left wing, whereas we usually think of nationalism as being right wing. So yeah, Crowd is a good channel. I think it is. I don't know what Tick is. I'll have to look it up. Tick is famous for uploading like a really long video arguing that the Nazis were socialists. And the problem with it is that I have with that video personally is that although I'm sympathetic to the argument, it's very esoteric. It's a very esoteric video that I think some people poke holes in it for stupid kind of holes in it. It's like, oh, you're calling the ancient Egyptians socialists. Like, well, no, he's using like an economic model of, total government control over the economy, and so like the big problem I have with it is that it's very esoteric. And I think he's answering the wrong question. The question of, like, are the Nazis socialists is the wrong question. The question he wants to answer is, and that most people trying to answer that question are actually answering, is, were the Nazis capitalists? And I think the answer there is clearly no. But they're also not socialists in a purely... they're not socialists in a purely technical sense. Thomas Connolly, Vosh can't argue out of a wet paper bag. Perhaps. I don't watch Vosh. I just know of him. Let's see. Got some bots in the chat, so let me report some spam here for a moment. All right. Spam bots be gone. I don't need your spam clouding up my chat. And doink, and there goes the spam for now. All right. So yeah, there is a bot in the chat. Ban it. Already done. And there is Quebec nationalism in Canada. It's like, yes, Quebec nationalism is also very weird. It's this weird mix of like very traditional chauvinistic, but also being like socialistic. It's weird. So yeah, so making a video about nationalism, it's like I'm not prepared to do that at this time. But yeah, so those are your favorite YouTube channels, excluding Casual Historian, and so I might either borrow some ideas from them or perhaps work with some of those people in the future. And now we get to the section that is about videos. So, which type of video do you prefer? Standalone videos or videos that are part of a series? And right now, it is very close, 139 to 137. So it's basically functionally tied, because it's functionally a tie here. And so, currently it's 49.6 prefer series and half of you prefer standalone videos. If we compare this to previous years, it says in 2020, a majority of respondents preferred videos that were part of a series. And in 2021, a majority of you still preferred series, but it was a slightly smaller majority. And so the trend we seem to be seeing here is that over time, we are seeing the people who want series videos that are just a series, are trending downward. In fact, actually right now, they are the minority, the very slightest minority. And so I think if we have to guess, like if I had to guess at why that is the case, I would probably have to guess it's because like a plurality of the views on my channel come from people who are not subscribed to the channel. And people who are not subscribed to the channel, people who are not regular viewers, are more likely to that. But then again, that does actually, I don't think that answers this at all, because everybody here who answered the survey are sort of like, for lack of better words, super fans. You know, people who care enough about the channel and the content to actually answer a survey, a voluntary survey. So yeah, so I cannot say exactly why, but the trend seems to be that videos that are standalone, that you don't have to watch, you know, however many extra hours worth of content to get it, are preferred. If we look at the next question here, how long do you prefer my videos to be? Currently, the winner is 20 minutes or more, and I'm not surprised by that because, you know, who wouldn't love, you know, a 20-plus minute documentary every week about a subject that you're not going to see anywhere else, which is followed up in a respectable second by 10 to 20 minutes. And then, of course, 10 minutes and under is very small, like 2% want videos that are under 10 minutes. If we compare this to previous years, to previous ones, like in 2020, the winner was the 10 to 20 minute video category. It was a majority of people, a sizable majority of people, wanted videos that were only 10 to 20 minutes long. In 2021, the majority was still people who just wanted 10 videos that were 10 to 20 minutes. But, you know, there was a larger percentage of people who wanted videos that are under 10 minutes. 2022, however, is definitely flipped this, where now a sizable majority want 20-minute plus videos, and fewer than ever want videos that are under 10 minutes. And I think part of this is fueled simply by what I have made. I think that if most of the videos I put out this last year had been between 10 and 20 minutes, the 10 to 20 minute category would be higher. It might be a majority or higher than it currently is here. So I think some of these questions are also kind of just reflective of what I've been doing. So, you know, it's like people like what I'm doing, which is why they're watching the videos, which is why they like them enough to fill out a survey. And so I think that's kind of what's going on here. All right. And then here, what topic would you like me to cover in a future video? I want to go back to this question a little later. So move on to the next question after that. What area of video making do you think I need most improvement in? And this year, it is on-screen performance, as in what I'm doing when on camera, followed by the audio, followed by editing, then by filming, and then writing. Now, comparing that to previous years, in 2020, on-screen performance was the number one, followed by audio, then editing, then writing, and then filming. And then in 2021, audio was definitely the one people thought I should be improved. I need to make the most improvements in, followed by on-screen, etc. And so the fact that audio is now that low means that that's probably the thing one of the technical aspect that I've improved in most this last year is how to do better audio. All right, so the next section we go into is marketing. Yeah, so this is basically all stuff that has to do with like the business side of it. The business stuff. And so 274 of the 285 of you responded. And a majority of you, 61%, the question, have you ever financially supported a creator on YouTube? And click all the ways that apply. And so a majority of you have not, which is not unusual. Most people do not financially support a creator directly, and that is perfectly fine. That is nothing to feel bad about. I don't do that to too many creators myself, and so that is completely understandable there. So those are people who either can't or don't want to. That is followed by people who support through Patreon, Subscribe Star, or other crowdfunding platforms. These are like your monthly kind of like contribution measures, and that's about 17% of you guys. Then we have people who support through like either PayPal donations or perhaps bought an item on a creator's Amazon wish list. That is about 5%. Followed by they bought a product or service from one of their sponsors. This is an important one because this is the one I want to get higher, but it's hard to make that number go up just on your own. Because if you promote some kind of business in a video, whether or not that business wants to sponsor your videos again is going to be entirely dependent on whether or not they found that advertising to be worth it. It's like if that advertising brought them new customers and brought them enough new customers to make what they spent on you worth it, then they are more likely to want to sponsor you again. But that's also the hardest one to control for. And then after that is bought something through an Amazon affiliate link. So, most of the time when I do a video, I list the sources down in the description, and some of those sources are books, and I will link to like an Amazon affiliate link. And so if somebody's interested in buying that source, they can click that link and it'll take them to Amazon. If they buy anything through Amazon after clicking that link, it'll send a little chunk of change my way. Then there are YouTube channel memberships at about 6.9%. Nice. So this is basically also kind of like Patreon or Subscribe Star, except it's built into YouTube. And a lot of channels have embraced this because it's meeting people where they are. Because if you're a kind of person who buys a super chat or something, you're probably going to be more likely to want to join a channel's membership rather than say joining their Patreon, because YouTube already has your information from giving money. They already have your card number and everything, so it's easier that way. So it's lower than that. So I'm probably going to set up YouTube channel memberships sometime in 2023, but I don't know when. That is followed up by a super chat or super thanks at about 8% of you guys, which, okay, that's interesting. Might be something worth looking for. About 17% of you guys bought merch. So any kind of merch stuff. And then, of course, YouTube Premium membership. This is not a direct support for a channel, but rather a way of just supporting the platform in general. Let's see if you ever bought merch from a creator. What was it? We're not going to go over these open answers here. Not really useful for you guys. Next is a number of sponsors available or potential sponsors and how many people had heard of them. Skillshare, a lot of people had heard of. Wondrium, Curiosity Stream, Audible, Crunchyroll, Dodoist, Workona, definitely the smaller end there. Squarespace, Hover, various VPNs, brilliant established titles. A lot more people know about what that is now than when I first asked. HelloFresh, Raid Shadow Legends, World of Warship, World of Tanks, and none. And of the people who use these services, Audible is the most widely used one. That's the most widely used. Followed by Curiosity Stream and World of Tanks, surprisingly enough. And Crunchyroll. No, Crunchyroll is the second highest. So, yeah, the streaming services definitely lead out over most of the others. Then comes the question of live streams. I've been asking questions about this for a while because I wanted to know whether or not live streams are worth doing or doing more often if they were doing. And for a majority of the respondents, how frequently do you watch live streams? Frequently, occasionally, rarely. Rarely is the majority response. And so that leads me to think that live streams are probably not something I want to do too often. But then again, this could also just be reflective of what I'm doing. Similar to how other parts of the survey, I think, are more reflective of simply people like what I do, and so they say, okay, keep doing more of that. This could be a reflection of that, but I don't know. So I also asked, if you do watch live streams, where? And the vast majority of you, 95%, watch live streams on YouTube. About 22% of you guys will watch them on Twitch, another 3% on Facebook, and then another just under 3% watch on some other platform. And then the time zone thing, which is mostly just trying to figure out, okay, how to optimize. If I were to do live streams on a regular basis, where, it's like, what time should I do? And that's mostly for my back-end usage. Then we get to demographics questions. These are the politics and religion questions, always non-controversial. And so the topmost answer is lower left, where it comes to, like, if you have ever taken the political compass test, which quadrant did you fall into? Either most recent or most consistently if taken more than once. And 29%, almost 30% of you guys, the highest is lower right at just under a third. Just under a third of you guys have taken the test and it classified you as being libertarian right. Followed by lower left being the libertarian left. Then, followed by those who haven't taken the test are the third highest category. Followed by upper right or authoritarian right. And then the lowest being at about 4% being authoritarian left. Now, obviously, there are plenty of issues with the political compass, but I just think it's interesting to get this kind of information, see, like, what are the proclivities of my audience? And the proclivities of my audience are definitely to the right for the most part. To the right, not a majority to the right, mostly because of all the people who haven't taken the test. And so who knows where they fall. And so it might just be worth asking the question in the future, like replacing this question of, how do you identify yourself either on the chart or, it's like, instead of asking if they have taken the compass test, I think in the future I'll simply ask, where on the compass do you identify with? And then comes the religion question. And so, as in most years, those who are not religious, that being atheist or agnostic, are the largest single group at about just under 40%. Followed by those who are Jewish, surprisingly enough. It's actually kind of funny because so Sam Aronow a little while ago put out a video where he gave the results of his own audience survey. And one of the questions he asked, of course, was, what other channel that makes, like, content about Jewish history do you watch? And I am one of the top channels that his viewers say they watch for Jewish history content. So it's like the number one other channel they went to was, like, Unpacked, and then second was me. So, that's, it's funny. It's like, I'm second place just behind a dedicated Jewish history and culture channel. That's just kind of funny to me. So, so first is not religious, then Jewish, followed by Roman Catholic. See, at a Roman Catholic at about 11%. Non-denominational Christian is about 4%. liturgical Protestants. So this is, your Anglicans, your Lutherans, your ones that, the ones that have, the ones with the pastors with the vestments and the little white collars, You've learned, you recite the creeds at some point. 3.5% are mainline Protestant or liberal Christianity, liberal or progressive Christianity. And about 5.6% are evangelical Protestants. About 3% are other. About 4% are Sunni Muslims. About 5% classify as other Christians. And about 2% are Mormons, and about 3% are Greek Orthodox. So, interesting. So, yeah, interesting there. And next we move on to education, educational background. How many books do you read a year? And a majority of you read 10 or fewer books a year, which is not unusual. It's like once people are out of school, they read less. And I'm curious, I'm going to check the other one, see if this number has changed much over the years. Let's see. And let's see, back in 2020, it was about 58% of you read 10 or fewer, and about 30% of you read about 11 to 30. In 2021, the number of you that read 10 or fewer shrunk. The number of you that read 11 to 30 stayed about the same, but the number of those of you who read 30 plus books a year went up a few percentage points, which is nice. Compare that to there, we see kind of a return to the mean. So this last year, a number of you stopped reading as many books. I think maybe some of you graduated from college, and so you don't have as much time to read, or maybe your interest just changed or whatever. But yeah, a bunch of you shifted over to the 11 to 30 books a year category. And then there is the level of education. And so a majority of you, or not a majority, but most of you, about 37%, have some college. That means either you have an associate's degree or you're currently in college but haven't graduated yet. The second largest category is a bachelor's degree or higher. Higher, which is nice. It means we have a very college-educated audience here at about 36%. So just not too far behind those who are in college. Followed by those who are still in high school or younger. So maybe these are videos you've been recommended by teachers, or maybe you're just a nerd and you just found this stuff on your own. Followed by those who have a high school diploma or a GED. So, those who have high school or GED but not in college, though some of them might be in college and just not answered properly. I should probably clarify that in the future version. And then the smallest number of you, about 2%, are in some kind of technical or training school, or had technical or training school in your educational background. And then there's a question I had for people who are college educated, which unfortunately I did not go through and analyze this the way I did some of the other stuff. So I'm going to have to do that a bit myself later on. But now let's go to the topic suggestions panel. So when I got, one of the questions was about, okay, what topics do people want to see? And so those were the topic suggestions, which I got all right here. I went through them all and categorized, okay, how many people wanted each kind of topic. Then I had to simplify it a bit and categorize them broader categories. So basically I subdivided these into suggestions, topics, basically topics and subjects. Subjects are high level stuff. It's basically is mostly geographical. Like here, I had of 37 points, basically 37 people of the respondents of wanting some kind of subject wanted something that is like American history related. Followed by Middle East history at 34, then followed by some kind of European history, then Asian history, then Latin American, then African, then history of religious history, then other is basically like I couldn't categorize it. There weren't enough of any one of them to categorize it, so I labeled it as just other. Then economics, followed by geopolitics, culture, medieval history. It's a particular time period. I felt the need to separate it. And then Canada, because I wasn't going to lump a Canadian subject with American history, because gross. So if you were purely looking at this, it seems like most people want some kind of American history. But the problem with the American history lot is that the people who want American history are very divided on what they want subjects of American history to be. Because like you have like small numbers of people who want something about the Second Amendment or gun control. Some people want more just political history. And a small number of people just want a general history. But otherwise, all the other subjects of American history, there's like only one person asking for a very specific subject. So although most of the topic suggestions were for some kind of American history, none of those subjects are like the highest, have the highest demand. If we sort by how much demand there is for a particular topic, as in a specific topic to make a video about, we find that the highest demand subtopic for a video is something to do with Israeli history. Either it's wars with the neighboring Arab states or having to do with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And so that is the highest, followed by wars in post-colonial Africa, which historically speaking have been fraught for the education, for the history community, because like an unfortunate reality for the history creators is that they would like to do more stuff about Africa, but whenever they do make content about Africa, it never performs as well as the stuff that's not about Africa. Yeah, so they never perform as well as the videos that are not about African history. But when I look at, this core demographic of people who watch the videos on the channel, are super interested in the content I make, those people want more African history. And of course, like my most viewed video that I uploaded this year to the channel was my video about Mobutu, the dictator of the Congo, which was for Project Dictator. And the video did not perform very well the first day, but it ended up performing better later on in the following days, and it ended up becoming like the best new video of the year. Like the video that got the most views that I uploaded in 22 was a video about African history. And so the tide there might be turning, but you still have to be careful. Of course, the third most demand was the Rhodesian Bush War. And considering the fact that the Rhodesian Bush War is a war in post-colonial Africa, if you combine those two subjects together, they outnumber the demand for war for about any kind of videos about modern Israel. Now, granted, if you combine the interest in modern Israel with the general Middle East topic, which is right below, or which is tied with Rhodesian Bush War, then Israel still beats out. But it's definitely something to look into. And so I'll probably be using this list here as a way of guiding, like prioritizing what kind of content. Now, that doesn't mean like every video is just going to be about Israel or the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but it does mean that there's probably going to be numerous videos throughout the year about that. So if that is something, if that is a topic you are interested in, if that is a topic you are interested in, then good news, everyone. You're going to be getting a bit more of it next year. As well as I want to throw in some more post-colonial Africa. Like just this morning, I finished a script for a video that'll be coming out in February that is about post-colonial Africa. So, yeah, you'll get some of that. All right, and I think that about covers the survey. And yeah, that about covers the survey. So I guess we're going to turn the rest of this live stream into a bit of a Q&A. So if you have a question you would like to ask, now is the time to do so. We'll do about, say, 20-something minutes on Q&A. So whatever questions you have for me and about the world, about YouTube, about the channel, whatever you have, do about 20-30 minutes of Q&A if you guys are interested in that. See some of the comments here. I mentioned Amazon Smile. Please look into it. I will. I was happy with your work in all of those categories, but there wasn't an everything is fine option. I get it. I know. It's like, I mostly put there because like I want people to, I want to know what areas I should focus on improving. And it looks like in this next year, on-screen performance seems to be the one people want me to focus on. Let's see. Sick Zappy Beef. What topic do you enjoy most to make? I like 20th century videos that are the 20th century, especially ones that let me use, that let me make the map videos, or at least the videos that use a lot of map animations. Because like there's a software that has become very popular on YouTube in the last year or so called GeoLayers 3. It is a plugin for After Effects. It was popularized by Johnny Harris and Vox. Like a lot of their videos use this a lot, and a lot of channels have picked it up over the last year or so. And so, yeah, I was one of the many channels who has been influenced by the style of Johnny Harris's, his videos that do a lot of map stuff. And so, yeah, I like the topics that let me use that software more because it's something easy to do once you know how to use it. Still munching. Did you watch the World Cup? No, I did not watch the World Cup. I am not much of a sports guy in general, much less a soccer fan. So, yeah, I did not watch the World Cup. I don't know who won. Let's see, Kame3131. When did you go to college and what was your major? So, my college years dragged out for a long time. I graduated high school in 2009 and I attended college. I attended my community college from 2009 through 2015, and then I went to a 4-year university from 2016 to 2018. So yeah, my college experience was really dragged out. And my major was, once I got to the 4-year school, I was a history major because at my junior college, you couldn't major in history there at the time that I was there. I think my junior college has changed it, so you now can major in history there, but that wasn't an option at the time. Let's see, Philippe Garcia. A good time ago, you shared a video about the Black Legend, the evil Spanish Empire historiography. Should be looked with more context and nuance and less politics. What's your take on it? Well, the video was good. I enjoyed it. The video was good, and it gives this idea of, like how these ideas were, used. It's like, basically, it's kind of like how history can be used to justify politics. It's like the British Empire justifies, the Spanish treatment of natives was so horrific. That's why us taking away their colonial possessions is perfectly fine. So, it's like, and it also forgets that a number of the native populations of the Americas at the time the Spanish arrived were engaged in human sacrifice, which is something that was no longer practiced in Europe, the Middle East, and East Asia. It's like there was quasi practice of human sacrifice in like India, like that one ritual where like a woman would throw herself onto the bonfire of her late husband, you know. So that was like sort of killed off in the 19th century. But yeah, so it's a lot more complicated than that, though. Of course, the Spanish still did bad things in the Americas, you know, but it's something that should be a little more nuanced. AJ Westgate asks, will you ever cover Watergate? I don't, at the moment, I don't see myself making a video about Watergate itself. I'm not opposed to the idea, but I would have to think of like a format to cover it. I'd have to think of some way to cover it. Lindsay Manning, predictions for 2023 for world events? Nothing specifically. I don't think, you know, it's like, unfortunately, I don't think the protests in China and Iran will topple their respective regimes. And I think the war in Ukraine will continue on. Nothing more specific, unfortunately. Still munching. Has YouTube gotten better for creators? Yes and no. Like it's gotten better for creators in some sectors and harder for those in others. It's been getting more difficult for like history creators, you know, anybody who talks about like controversial things and not even like, you know, like explicitly sexual things. Because like there was this time where like a lot of LGBTQ plus content creators, and a lot of them still do this today, where they complain that YouTube is like, it's suppressing our content. It's like, it's because most of your content is explicitly sexual. It's like, I'm sorry, it is. Most of your guys' content is explicitly sexual, and that's why it gets suppressed. Whereas content about violence, or talking about violence, even if you're not explicitly showing it, has been like, since August, YouTube has been, you know, like clamping down on that, though. But I suspect the clamp down on that is going to lift probably sometime in the next couple months, mostly because YouTube, like every 6 months or so, ends up going through these cycles of they're clamping down on one particular type of like content that they have gotten fire for at some point in the last 6 months. And so I think probably sometime around February or March, we're going to start seeing them ease up on content about violence, I think. So yeah, Kame3131, if you could interview a historical figure, who would you choose? Oof. Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, to be honest. Yeah, I don't have an answer to that one. My answer changes depending on what videos I've been making. Let's see. Six Zappy Beef. Have you seen the HBO Rome TV show? I've seen the first season. I've seen the first season of Rome. I have not seen the second season. I have both of them on DVD here at the home, but I haven't watched it all. Still munching. Will you cover Nigeria? Remember earlier when I mentioned that I finished a video script earlier today? Just keep an eye out for February. You might see something around that time. Devin Canada, is today the day you answer your patron questions as well? Well, I know there wasn't many. No, Devin. No. So I asked patrons a little while ago for questions for a special patrons only Q&A, and there's going to be a video for patrons only that I will be answering those questions in. The video won't solely be, a Q&A, but the Q&A will be a part of the video. See, Kame3131, make a video on how Watergate affected Reagan. So recently, I actually finished listening to a biography of Reagan recently, and of course, Oh boy, Watergate was a messy thing for Reagan because Reagan had been a big supporter of Nixon and had defended Nixon when Watergate first came out. But by the time, by the time Nixon had to resign, Reagan had felt betrayed. Reagan had felt betrayed by Nixon by the time all the information came out. And so he got very bitter at them. So I can see a video how I talk about Watergate and Ronald Reagan, but it would probably be more in the light of like comparing it to like the modern state of the GOP. It's like, how did the Republican Party move past Nixon, and what lessons can that serve for, how does the Republican Party move past Trump kind of thing. Carlos E., are you planning on doing a history of Christianity? I keep thinking about it. I keep thinking about doing a history of Christianity, but I keep talking myself out of it because it's like, this is like, because like depending on how you want to do it, like how detailed you want to be, and that's the question I don't know. I don't know how detailed of a history of Christianity I want to do, and that's why it hasn't been. That's why I haven't come out with one yet. Lindsay Manning, in your History of John Bull video, you referenced Hitalia. Have you seen it, and what do you think? I saw it back in the day. I saw it back in the early 2010s, and I enjoyed it. I don't know if I would enjoy the series now. It's been a long time, because I don't know if it held up for me personally. MG Kelly, I like to learn more about Eastern Europe, like the Kosovo War. There's so much media suggesting that the media was very biased. I'd like to know the truth. I might look into that, though I'm going to have to look at my topic stuff and see, is this a subject worth prioritizing? And I'll get back to you guys on that. CF, do you think the Ark of the Covenant, I'm assuming you're saying, do you think the Ark of the Covenant is in Oxum, Ethiopia? I don't think so. I think the Ark of the Covenant is long gone. I think it was like whatever gold was on it has long since been melted down and lost. And the material that was the gold was placed around, I think, is long since gone. I do not think it exists anymore. AJ Westgate, will you cover FDR more in the future? I will. It's just, unfortunately, I don't see myself doing like what the Cynical Historian did and making a whole video dedicated to why I dislike him, because there's so many things I dislike about him, and each of those things I think need more detail. Like I could talk about, his attempt to pack the Supreme Court. I could talk about, the failed and counterproductive policies of the New Deal. I could talk. It's like, in fact, there's still stuff I want to talk about in regards to FDR and the Holodomor. It's like I've had this idea for a video because I want to do a deeper dive into that, thinking like, okay, it's like, what did FDR know about the Holodomor prior to recognizing the Soviet Union? It was like, and covering like a number of hypotheses, like, was he kept in the dark about it? If he knew about it, did he believe it was happening and choose to reward the Soviet Union anyways? Or did he hear about it and simply not believe it? So I want to do more into that, but that requires a certain amount of resource gathering that I don't have at the moment. Lindsay Manning, what will people remember the most about 2022? It's probably Russia's invasion of Ukraine. That set a bunch of stuff in motion. Like the only reason people thought the Republican wave, like the Republicans were going to win big in the 2022 midterms, was because of the Russia's invasion. It's like Russia's invasion, causes gas prices to skyrocket. High gas prices are never good for a sitting president. And so everything else from this year sort of like follows on that. Let's see, Six Zappy Beef, have you considered doing any ancient history? Well, depending on how old you're thinking, there was a video I was supposed to get out right before Christmas about another Jewish history video in which I covered the period of King Herod, but I wasn't able to get that out in time due to my computers breaking down right before Christmas. Luckily, I got them back. And so that video is subject to come out in January now. And so if that, I'm definitely considering doing that. But the bigger reason I'm not doing as much like ancient history as I kind of did before, like when I was doing like Jewish history or somewhat Islamic history, similar like aesthetic anyways. And the reason I'm not doing as much of that is because it takes more time trying to, like there's less visual materials available. So unless I want the videos to all be maps, and there's only so much mapping I can do, I don't think I will be doing too much ancient history. You know, it's all about visual materials. Comment 3131. What did both President Roosevelts think about the other? Well, I don't think Theodore Roosevelt thought much about FDR at all. It's like, I think FDR was just like his fourth or fifth cousin and married his niece. So, yeah, I don't think they thought too much about it. It's like, I know, like, FDR tried to model his political career on Theodore Roosevelt. And he definitely banked on Theodore Roosevelt's name recognition for his own political advancement. But, yeah. Let's see, Carlos E., do you know what the rerun Nova Run is? I can't say I do at the top of my head. AJ Westgate, today is the 100th anniversary of the Soviet Union. Fun fact. I don't think it's a fun fact. I think it's a unfortunate fact. But yeah. Yeah. Happy or crappy 100. Well, it depends on I guess when you're calling for the founding of the Soviet Union, like you're the one who says like the 100th anniversary of like the ending of the Civil War, or do you count the beginning of the Soviet Union like 1917? But yeah, get the idea. Lindsay Manning, do you think the 2010s will be talked about as much in the future as some other decades, or is that not interesting or important? It's like, when it comes to decades of time period, like decades mostly get talked about in terms of like cultural history. Otherwise, when you're talking about events, when talking about history, you talk about events, and sometimes events are associated with certain time periods. You know, it's like the Great Depression is associated with the 1930s, and the two are kind of synonymous. World War II is the 1940s. You know, Vietnam is the 1960s. And so it's like certain events are just associated with certain decades. But I think it's more along the lines of we think of the event first, and then the decade is just kind of affiliated with the event. See, comment 3131. What did Mussolini think about the Soviet Union? I don't know. I haven't read too much into Mussolini's thoughts on the Soviet Union. I know Mussolini in his younger days, he was a socialist, and he never really gave up his socialist beliefs, but because he became more nationalistic at the same time, you know, he got sort of like expelled from the Italian left because of that. The Six Zappy Beef, do you think the UK will eventually rejoin the EU? I don't know, because like it's a weird state, the current state of British politics. See, like the Brexit vote back in 2016 was kind of a muddy affair because neither of the two major parties, that being the Conservative Party and the Labour Party, neither of them were able to take a firm position in the debate. You know, it's like, because the Conservative Party was split between Remainers and Brexiters, and the Labour Party was also split on the issue of whether or not to remain in the EU, especially under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, because Jeremy Corbyn tried to take the Labour Party in a more explicitly like Marxist socialist direction. And along with all the other problems, that meant that some of the Marxist issues with international trade also came up, because like The EU is seen by many Marxists as a capitalist venue for saying, oh, like basically that international trade promotes capitalism, and therefore we don't want international trade because we want to collapse capitalism. But there are also those that say, oh no, but there are also some socialists who are more internationalists thinking, oh, it's like, oh, but we need, workers of the world need to unite because, you know, like, because the business owners in our country can simply move their like manufacturing overseas and then exploit those workers. But if we and those workers overseas unite together, we can, you know, defeat the capitalists, etc., etc. And so neither the Conservative Party nor the Labour Party were able to take a definitive position on the issue. And because of that, you know, like neither were able to campaign explicitly on it. It's like the only parties that were able to explicitly take a position were the Scottish National Party, who were against leaving the EU, the Liberal Democrats, who were also against leaving the EU, and the UKIP, who were pro leaving the EU. Because of that, it was just a big mess. And I don't think the UK will rejoin the EU until one of the major parties comes to a decision on what it wants to be. You know, it's like basically, it's like the Labour Party and the Tories, one of them has to make a decision on whether or not they want to be pro-EU or anti-EU. You know, it's like if one of them explicitly states that their party is officially anti-EU, then the other party will probably adopt the opposing position. And so I don't think they don't have a chance of rejoining the EU until one of them makes up their mind on it. Carlos E., what is Hetalia? It was mentioned in a previous comment. Hetalia is an anime with that's basically about all the countries in the world as like anthropomorphized characters. And that's Hetalia. Kame 3131. The 2024 GOP primaries will be fun to watch. I hope not too fun. Fact matter is, I really hope this time around the GOP primaries are a small number of candidates. Because the last time what happened was, you know, we had a bunch of people. We had like 16 people running to be, you know, the standard bearer, the Reaganite standard bearer. And then you had Trump, who, although Trump never won a majority of the vote in any of the primaries, he always won a plurality. And so I really hope that doesn't happen again. I really, you know, it's like basically we don't want a bunch of people who are trying to be the standard bearer for like Reaganite conservatism. You know, it's like you want one guy representing that kind of branch of the party and then let Trumpy type people all compete for the Trump lane. So yeah. Yeah, so I'm not the biggest fan of, DeSantis in Florida, but I'll take DeSantis over Trump. I will take DeSantis over Trump any day, you know? It's like, so, yeah. All right. We've been going here for a little over an hour. So, I think I'm going to call it there. Thank you guys so much for watching this live stream. And I'm hoping to make this, of course, a regular part of the channel going through the next year, about one live stream a month. It'll usually be on Thursdays. So the last Thursday of the month, I'm going to aim to be a live stream. And if you are a member of the Patreon, feel free to ask more questions on the dedicated post on Patreon or in the Patrons-only Discord server, because another video will be coming out just for you guys, in which I'll be talking about the state of the channel. What's the what the plan for the future of the channel is, and what the strategy for next year is. So, like I said, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.